So to give you an idea, I spent $98,500 for my investment portfolio, for my own savings, to pay for personal expenses and business expenses since January 2023. So just over 25 months, I spent almost 100 grand of my own money to keep the lights on and grow the business. And you might be asking, Guillaume, why did you choose that path? Because I could have chosen a way easier path, right? Hi, and welcome to the Millennial Money Canada podcast. I'm your host, Guillaume. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. You could be doing many other things, and you're taking precious times of your day to listen to me, to listen to us. And I really appreciate that. And if you're a new listener, welcome. Welcome to this podcast. Our goal is to help you elevate your knowledge about finance and other topics in life so that you can live your best life, build wealth, give generously, and leave a legacy that you're proud of. This episode is going to be slightly different than maybe the other episodes, where I'm going to be walking you through my journey from having a scarcity mindset around money to having an abundant mindset around money. So it's less technical. This is a good episode if you're walking your kids in a stroller in your neighborhood or just having some downtime where you don't need to take notes or anything like that. This is the episode for that. It's also the episode if you have a scarcity mindset, around money where you feel you don't have enough. And really, it doesn't matter how much you're earning or whether you're getting a promotion or your business is growing. It never seems to be enough. So this episode is for you. And throughout my journey on how I've shifted my mindset and the tools that I've used and the experiences that I've been through that helped me shift my mindset, I hope you can get insights from that can make a difference for you in order to liberate you. But before I dive into today's subject, I want to update you on my life right now. Or at least the month of March. March 2025 has been one of the best months of my life, both personally and professionally. At the beginning of the month, with my hockey team, which I play for the Hounds in the Victoria Hockey League. It's what I would call the competitive beer league here in Victoria, BC. We won the championship. And this, you have no idea how much it means to me to have won with those guys. So let me tell you, a story of how I even joined the team. When we moved back to the island in 2022, I didn't want to join a beer league because my experience in Vancouver left me with mixed feelings. I got my, teeth all chopped off into like an altercation at the end. And I was tired of this, little aggressive guys who are taking the aggression on the ice. I was kind of done with this. But I had heard that the VHL is really good caliber. So I put my name as a sub and I was waiting for a call to be called up, essentially. 2 years went by and I didn't get a call up. But last fall in September 2024, I got a text by now my friend and kind of captain, like Ryan Woody. And he texted me, hey, we need some guys tonight. Can you play? And I showed up. They like me because I'm a defenseman, good size, can move the puck well. I'm really solid defensively, not the goal scorer that you would hope for, but I'm working on it. And they called me back up a few times. And then in October, they gave me a spot, October, November, they gave me a spot on the roster and they said, hey, do you want to join the team full time? And I said, yes. And all those guys are about 10 years younger than me. So I'm 34 and I'm the oldest by far. They've all played. We're only 2 guys on the team who didn't play junior level, but they've all played, NCAA, Division 1, UHL, Junior A, and Junior B. So we're 2 guys on the team who haven't played junior, and they're very skilled. For me, it's really good hockey. And anyway, that's how I joined the team. And the season didn't go that well. Like we barely played 500 in the season. So when we got into the playoffs, the first round we were expected to win, which is a best of 3. And the second round, we were expected to lose, which is another best of three, which is very unique for a beer league. Usually it's like one game elimination and that's it. But in this league, it's a best of three first round, best of three second round, and then the final is best of five. And we won first round in 2 games. We won the second round in 2 games as well. And then we made it to the final, which was a surprise to almost everyone on the team, if we're honest with ourselves. And in the final, we pushed it to game 5 and we won in game 5. And Kayla's parents were there for some of the games. Kayla's grandmother, so my fiance, all her family's on the island, so they all came to support me, which it means so much to me. And winning the championships, I don't remember last time I won anything in hockey. This is going down as one of the best hockey moments of my life. And just wanted to share that with you. So that's how I started the month of March. But at the same time, I was also doing some lifting progressions in the gym. So as you can see, I'm huge into sports and fitness. And if you are, get in touch with me, whether it's on the personal social media, and which I'll share at the end. But yeah, if you're working towards some goals, like message me, DM me, find me, whether it's Instagram or LinkedIn, and get in touch with me so I can follow you and I can cheer for you. Because I'm sharing this with you, but I also love seeing other people chasing their goals, right? It fuels me to see others do the same thing. But yeah, in the gym, I was working in a lifting progression. So since January in the gym, we were working on box squats, strict press, and sumo deadlift. So those were 3 main lifts, and we were working with bands to add tensions to the lift. So you're using less weights, but with the bands, it adds a little resistance. So it's another way to get stronger, which I actually loved. I've never done progressions like that. So it was awesome. It was really good on the joints and it felt awesome. So I worked on that progression as well as working on a running progression or running training. So I was working with a coach to also PR my half marathon. This was all going on at the same time from January to last week. And last week was the best fitness month or fitness week, of my life. On Tuesday, it was the time to retest the box squat. So I hit 405 pounds, which for me is heavy. Like I'm happy with that. Then on Wednesday, it was a strict press, which I hit 185. My max all-time PR was 195, and that was in 2021. I was maybe stronger on the press that way, at that time, but I wasn't as conditioned as I am today. So anyway, like 10 pounds away from my all-time PR, which I'm like super happy with. And then on Thursday, it was sumo deadlift, and I hit 525 pounds. If I had done it properly, I could have probably hit 545 pounds. But anyway, I got 525 for that on that day, which is a PR for me. I've never deadlifted anything above 500 pounds. So anyway, box squat 4, strict press 185 Wednesday, and sumo deadlift 525 Thursday. And then Sunday, it was the half marathon, which I had been training with my coach and the crew at Peak Endurance since January. And it was in Comox. So Comox is higher, up island here on Vancouver Island. It was windy. It was rainy. It was a tough course. It was 167 meters of elevation. There were hills, and on the road, you don't need that many hills to actually slow down your pace. Or for me, if I want to keep a higher pace, I need to work extra hard as soon as there's somewhat of a hill. My time on the chip time was 1 hour, 35 minutes and 12 seconds. On my Garmin, which I had programmed the half marathon there, it was 1 hour 34 and 43 seconds. So there was a bit of a differences because I think the course was 100 meter longer for some reason, or maybe the watch was off, either or. It was around 1 hour and 35 minutes, which I'm super happy with considering the weather and the, everything that I had going on in the whole week itself. So that was capping up the, one of the best fitness training week I've ever had in my life. I just wanted to share that with you. And the reason why, I'm doing those things is because life is not guaranteed. When I was younger, I thought I had all the time in the world, and now I'm 34 and I know we're going to have kids at some point, and I know my life's going to change and I'm ready for this. I've been ready for quite some time. but I'm trying to maximize the time that I have before my life changes or, we expand the family. But also, my nephew got diagnosed with leukemia at 3 years old last year. So April 2024, at 3 years old. And then my mom is in the hospital right now as I'm recording this podcast, got a heart attack at 58 years old, where she has one arteries blocked. She's fine now and she's going to get a transfer tomorrow. And then they're going to put a spring in one of her arteries. But yeah, this is kind of what's happening. So, when those things happens in life, it just makes me want to live even more in the present moment and not postpone anything that I want to do in life. And that's why when I meet with clients and I ask them, like, what's really important for you? Like, what do you actually want to do? And I'm trying to encourage them to do it as soon as possible, or to make it happen as soon as possible, and make their plan, their financial plan, and their financial affairs in line with what's important for them. Because we think we have all the time in the world, but we don't. So yeah, that was the month of March on the personal side. On the professional side as well, on the business, so just to give you an idea of kind of where I'm at right now, at my clientele, I have 8 households, including me. So some have 2 people in the household, some 1. And then I have, about 3 or 4 households in talks right now, which I think is looking really good. So the growth is going really well. It's because for many reasons, but all my clients are, either business owners or incorporated professionals in Canada. And I'm so grateful for everyone who's, of course, reaching out, but who I've onboarded, who I'm working with. I would say, a very close relationship with everyone. Everyone has gone through the same process, the same steps. I'm onboarding one client at a time. And I'm sure if we had a different process or we didn't have an onboarding fee, I would probably be onboarding people, more. But I'm very selective in who I'm working or who I'm onboarding, because this is going to be a long-term relationship, 10, 20, 30 years, probably, as long as I'm in the business. So I'm extremely grateful to be servicing people who are doing extremely well in their career, and they're very focused in their career and their business and their life, their health, and they just want to tap into the expertise of someone else to help them maximize their financial effort, their wealth, or the money they've worked so hard for. So the business, that's the update on the business, and I'll keep you in the loop as I'm growing my number of households. But of course, I am looking for more clients, and it's not that I have a minimum or anything like that. But for some reason, there's some people that will have no problem basically with the onboarding fee and will see the value in the financial plan, and I will also want someone to take everything off their plate, which is when we have a long-term agreement, which is assets under management. So there's some people who are interested in that kind of model, and then there's other people who would rather do it themselves or maybe found cheaper alternatives, which is perfect because there are different models for different people and different needs. So that's an update on the business. So the quote that I've been thinking, constantly throughout the month of March, or while I was going through all those training cycles and peaking cycles, is the goal is never to be perfect, but it's to be consistent. And if I look back since January, whether it was the business, the training for the half marathon, the training for the lifts, or showing up, at hockey games and giving my 110%, I wasn't perfect. There was a lot of trainings I had to modify because I was tired, I was exhausted, I needed rest, but I was consistent throughout. And I think that's allowed me to PR like almost all my lifts, and then PR my half marathon, which, sorry, I forgot to mention. So 1 hour and 35, this is an 18-minute PR from 10 years ago. So the last time I ran a half marathon was in 2015, and I ran 1 hour and 53 in Oak Bay in a course that was half the elevation. So Oak Bay was about 80 meters in elevation gain. This was twice the elevation gain, and I shaved off 18 minutes. So the goal is not to be perfect, it's to be consistent. And the other quote that is also on top of mind right now, it's what you don't change, you choose. What you don't change, you choose. So in any areas of your life, what we're not willing to change, we're essentially choosing that. And that makes me reflect on what areas of your life am I choosing to be that way, that I should be changing, that would benefit, or help me to be a better version of myself or have better impact on the people around me. right? This is a segue into the topic of today, which is money and mindset. So I want to share with you, my childhood from Saint-Hyacinthe, Quebec to today as a 34-year-old self-employed entrepreneur and the mindset along the way that has shifted. So I don't know where you are in your financial journey. Some of you might have some savings. Some of you might already be financially free or independent, meaning that you wouldn't have to work and you have enough passive income to support all your lifestyle needs and your expenses. And some of you are anywhere in between. So regardless of where you are, if I told you that it's not about your situation, or it's not about how much you're earning, how much you're saving, or how much you're investing, it's about your mindset and how you view yourself, on how you view your situation, not the situation itself. And this is probably the most profound realizations I've had in my life around my current money situation or any money situation that I'm in. And I've only learned to shift how I view myself, not how to be consumed by where I am or the period that I am currently as far as money, how to distinguish myself from the situation. I've only learned that when I ended up at the family office, which was a job that was paying me, handsomely, relatively speaking, but I hated being there. I hated the environment, the schedule. I hated the culture. I hated everything that had to do with that environment, and getting laid off and then spending about 2 years and more without getting paid, which I'm going to get to later on. And now building a business from zero. I went through all the money situations you can probably think of, from high earner, high saver, low expenses, to no earnings, no savings, high expenses, to building a business which has moderate expenses with moderate earnings and everything in between, right? I went through all those situations in a very short time span. So let's rewind and let me share with you how I grew up around money, because that's what shaped how I ended up at the family office in the first place. It's all tied to where it started or how I started. And just as a side note here, as part of my onboarding process or our onboarding process at Men and Wealth, our second meeting is about goals and values. So I asked this specific questions. How did you grow up around money, and what were your money beliefs when you were younger, and what are your money beliefs now? We go in depth with this so that I can understand your money reality or your mindset around money. And that's really important from a financial planning perspective. So I'm sharing that with you in this episode, but I ask this question and we have these conversations when we work together long term. So how I grew up around money is, money doesn't grow on trees. It's hard to make. You need to work really hard to make money, and you always need to exchange your time for money. So my dad worked as an excavator for the city of Saint-Hyacinthe, and he always worked really hard. So he worked his job full time, and then he was working overtime. I've always seen my dad work, his full time and then overtime. And then he usually had side jobs like cleaning jobs, which I used to help as well. And my sister used to help him as well on the weekends at like 5 a.m. going to clean, establishments that were owned by the church or things like that for like extra income. But I've always seen my dad worked really, really hard. So is my mom as well. Both of them don't have any like real post-secondary education. So I'm the first one who have graduated from university. My sister almost graduated before me, but that's a story for another day, which is 3 years younger. But yeah, so we're the first one to go to university. I wasn't even supposed to really go to university. I didn't grow up necessarily with that in mind. That was never like the goal. I just kind of ended up there. But I think the takeaway from this is, you need to work really, really hard to get money and to earn money. But also there was never this concept around business and kind of making, money work for you, or even like starting things. Like that was never, there's no one in my family that has a like business acumen. It came later on in life through my stepdad and then my sister today. But like when I look back at our family tree, even like uncles, no one is a business owner. So if I look at my teenage years, started working really young at 13 years old, picking up rocks in the fields. So what that means is in Quebec, where because of the winters are so harsh, by the time you get to the spring, the snow is melting. And before you seed, in order to have like healthier crops in the fall, um, you basically take all the rocks out of the fields and then you seed, right? So that was one of my first jobs. It was cash at the end of the day. And I remember all my life, they gave me a $50 bill in cash, red. And I was like, wow, and that was a lot of money back then. And I didn't even know what money meant really. And I was basically using this to help essentially pay for, hockey stuff, or again, buy more things, because I was playing high level, like rep hockey at the time. And it was putting financial pressure on my family. Like I stopped pretty young playing hockey, which is one of the biggest mistake I've done by giving that up, because that sent me into a really dark route from 14 to basically 17, 18 years old, which I might cover in a different episode. But that was one of the worst mistakes I've ever made, is quitting rep hockey, which I think was bringing me a lot of discipline at the time and purpose as well. And then I started landscaping for the city of Saint-Hyacinthe. So I was going to school, during the year in high school. And then in the summer, I was landscaping, and I was making, decent money, or maybe $4,000 per summer. So at the time, and then I was also working part-time usually during the school year as well. So I was making decent money, and then I was saving because I didn't have any expenses really. But this is where I made my first big mistake. So at the time, of course, there was no financial planning. So I didn't know anything about that. So I started having some savings. And then what I did is I dropped $5,000 modified Acura 1.6 EL at 16 years old, essentially, which is when you get your driver's license in Quebec, 16 years old and 8 months exactly. Bought a basically custom car with the wheels and the carbon hood. It was low profile with the lips. It was crazy. That car was a disaster, but it looked really good. And I was too young at the time to comprehend the difference between earning money, spending money, saving money, investing money. There's no discussions really around that. So I had no guidance also around how you can spend money to make yourself like happier. And that's the first mistake I made. Like, what if I had, let's say, took that cash and like went travel, for example, how much happiness would have derived versus the car who brought me happiness for probably a year, if that. And then I sold it, and I actually bought a sports bike, GSX 750, at like 17 or 18 years old. And I had that for a little bit. So I went from one material to the next material, so at a very young age, I learned that material doesn't really gives you happiness that is lasting, right? And it's just like wasting your money. But at the time, life was good. I never had to worry about money. I knew I could just work hard and make money. And that was it. And the parallel to today is I work with a lot of people today who are making $500,000 between them and their spouses, whether it's their business or their like equity compensation employees, a very high income earner. And they kind of live that lifestyle as well. They pay their $8,000-$9,000 mortgage. There's more money than enough. They don't have to worry about it. But that doesn't necessarily mean you can be like reckless in a way. That's where the planning is even more important, and the conversations around, tailoring your spending with your values and what's important for you is even more important. So even though I'm sharing that, and I learned that when I was in teenage years, I see a lot of that happening, within adults that are reaching to us to consult and get guidance on that. So okay, let's move. So that was the kind of the money mindset at the time. Can make money, can always make more money, can always work hard, and life is good. I'm making way more than I need. And then in college, so college is between high school and university in Quebec. So in Quebec, you don't have a grade 12, so you still have a grade 11. And then grade 12 is basically first year college. And then second year college is basically first year university. Because in Quebec, you go until grade 11, then you go to CEGEP, which is 2 years, and then you go to university, which is only 3 years, not 4. So anyway, college is like that sweet spot where you're before university, it's more generic courses. It can be very dangerous because if you don't know where you're going in life, you can basically screw yourself up, because if you don't have good grades, it's going to be really hard to get into a good university. So it's a very dangerous 2 years. What I wanted to share is when I got there, went to Cégep of Saint-Hyacinthe, I was working in a chocolate factory. I did a number of jobs, but I'm going to cut it short here. But I was working at a chocolate factory full time. So I was working 36 hours a week, but it was paid 40 because I was working at night. So I was working 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night. So night shifts, 12-hour shifts, 36 hours. I was making about, I think it was like $600 a week, living at home, no expenses. I mean, grocery back then was like $50, and going out was like $50 as well. So life was really good. Like I was spending, and there was like nothing left. Like I didn't know, what saving was, how to invest, none of that stuff. So I was making money. And then there's basically 2 nights a week almost I wasn't sleeping, because on Sunday night when I was working from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., I was going to school at 8:30 on Monday. So usually I was going to school, had courses, usually hitting the gym, and then I was going to bed like that night. And then Friday was the same thing. If I was sleeping in, courses in the afternoon, then I was working at 7 p.m. all night until Saturday morning. That was a crazy time, but life was good. Same mindset. You can work really hard, can make money. Life is good. Don't have to worry too much about it. I'm making way more than I need to cover my expenses. But then I moved to Victoria in 2011, and I started university in the fall of 2011. And when I moved to Victoria on a one-way ticket, I had $1,000 in my bank account. So I needed a job right away. So I started working at McDonald's. Just that's a funny story, actually. When I came here, I wasn't speaking English, and today I'm basically doing a podcast in English, which is crazy. But I wasn't speaking English, even though you learn English in Quebec. My English was horrendous. So when I moved here, no one wanted to hire me. They're like, "Oh, you seem like a nice guy, but you need to be able to speak English in order to speak with the customers." I was going to like Foot Locker or like those like shoe store, but no one wanted to hire me. So McDonald's were the first one to, of course, hire me. And I was working night shift there from Wednesday night to Sunday night. So 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So same thing. And actually it's the McDonald's downtown Victoria. And funny enough, when I got to the family office, which, where, you're talking about multi-billion-dollar portfolio, was basically across the street. So I was seeing the McDonald's from our office, which is where I started in 2011, and then I was at the family office in 2022, 11 years later. So that was funny. It's a humbling, like just reminds you like where you started, right? But yeah, so when I moved to Victoria, this is where things really shifted, because as I started studying or joining university, this is when the cost of living caught up with me, because now I had to pay rent. At some point, I needed a car, and I didn't plan anything. So then of course, I was asking my parents for help. My parents they were separated at the time. So they were paying like my rent, which was, I think it was $500. They were paying $250 each. But at some point I needed a car. So, I was calling my mom, "Hey mom, I need this." So, okay, car was like $2,000 and whatnot. Like there's always this like money request, and there was no planning. So this is at the point where my parents made the best decisions, and my mom really made the best decisions of my life, where she cut the cord. And what I mean by this is, she basically told me like, "Hey, like now you need to figure out how you're going to finance yourself. We're not a bank. You need to budget yourself, and you need to go through university, graduate, find ways however you can, but you need to finance yourself. Like we can't just be sending you money anymore." And that was rough. That was a welcome to life type of situation. And at the same time that this happened, I started working. So most of my degree, actually, I worked as a Zamboni driver. So I was driving a Zamboni at the University of Victoria during the Vikes games, and, of course, all the shifts. But yeah, I was a Zamboni driver, and that was actually really good income. Again, same thing. I was really good to find jobs that were paying well, because Zamboni driver was 20 something bucks an hour. And then when it was time and a half and doubles on holidays, so I was making between 20 and 40 something dollars an hour. That was over a decade ago, right? So that was really good. So my mom remarried, and her husband sat me down when I came back in the summer of 2012 and showed me what budgeting looks like. And I will remember this all my life. So he sat me down, showed me his budget sheet. He showed me how he runs his business. So, those are the income columns, those are the expenses columns, those are the surpluses. And at the time, I think the business was making, he sold it now, but let's say the business was making 250,000, 300,000. I had never seen numbers like this before. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh, wow. And then he's like, oh, this is how much I'm paying every 2 weeks, $4,000 every 2 weeks and whatnot. And I had never seen like numbers like this before. And this is the first time that I realized, wow, this is possible. One, I can own a business, but second, this is the potential, the money that I can earn if I'm really good at my craft. It's like, wow, that's interesting, right? Because I've never saw myself that way or saw that it was possible. So that was the start of budgeting. So I took that Excel sheet, and then that point on, never, I've been budgeting ever since, right? So it's been what, 13 years now. But the budget itself was instrumental in helping me graduate, manage my income, manage my expenses, manage my debt, and then later on, like start saving and whatnot. But the problem or the downside of it is it caused me a lot of stress, a lot of worries, I was very anxious. I was controlled by the budget sheet. I became obsessed with it, and it controlled every aspect of my life until I got laid off by the family office in 2022. So for almost a 10-year period of my life, I was controlled by a budget sheet. And that was the biggest like money mindset that, I should have worked, I should have shifted way earlier, but that's life, right? The thing is, a budget, it should be a North Star, it should be like a guide. It shouldn't consume your life. It shouldn't be consuming, every financial decisions that you're making. And I'll give you some example, right? When I had the budget and I set up, okay, this is how much I'm earning, and I was controlling to some extent depending on how many shifts I was working, but also how much I'm spending, which basically they're the two variables that we're all controlling regardless of your income, how much you're earning, how much you're spending. Especially if you're a business owner, how much you're earning, you control that depending on your prices, your products, and you can get more clients. There's a lot of things you can grow. So you control your income, but as an employee, sometimes you have less control over your income depending on the bonus, but usually sometimes they're already set, right? So depending on the role that you're in as well. But the expense part, everyone has that control over. So at the time, I had a budget, a line item for like grocery was $100, and we were shopping at Walmart at the time. So I was going with Kayla, and when we were doing grocery, if it was 101, I was putting whatever item was the last one, I was putting it back because it was 100. Like it was that crazy. And I did that for like almost like the majority of my degree. And also when I was updating my budget, because I'll get that in a second, how I financed my degree, there was a lot of guilt and shame in a way that maybe I should be making more, or I should have more, and I shouldn't have debt. I wouldn't want Kayla, my fiance, to be in the room when I was updating my budget. That's how much I was consumed by it. So anyway, and that's a side note into like just how I financed my degree. So the budget really helped me to make sure that whatever I was borrowing was being allocated to the right thing. So there was no RESPs, right? So I basically was using student loans and lines of credit, student loans from the government, and then lines of credits. And I was really good at, using the line of credits throughout, let's say, a semester or two. And then I was paying it off during the summer. So all in all, when I graduated from university, I think I only had like 20 something thousand, which I paid within 2 years after that. But in total, I paid, let's say, between 40 and 50 grand of debt throughout the degree. So I was, borrowing, paid it back, borrowing, paid it back type of thing, which really got me through that period of my life. But again, that 10-year period, even though everything was in control and there was nothing to really worry about because the budget was laid out, that should have taken all the stress away from me worrying about money, but it didn't for some reason because I didn't make the shift, the mindset shift that I needed to make. So now I've entered the professional workforce. So all my life up to this point, my mindset was if you just work harder, you can make more money and you can earn more, but there was no planning in place. There was no, okay, how much should I earn? How much should I spend? I know I need to spend less than I earn, but for what? For what purpose? What's the point of all of this? So when I entered the workforce, all I was focused on is trying to get good experience and increasing my income. That's all I was focused for. I need to make more money so that I can invest aggressively. And my mindset at the time was I wanted to retire early. In other words, I wanted to get the fuck out of the rat race. That's really what was going through my mind. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be in this corporate rat race for all my life. I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't like happy personally. I was motivated by money and growing my career, but I wasn't happy with the environment or what I was doing. But my mindset around being focused on trying to save as much as I can and trying to grow so I can get out or I can become financially free, or almost like that FIRE movement, which I strongly disagree with, by the way, because I'll get to that in a second. But I think people who are preaching the FIRE movement, there's a lot of good things around that movement, but there's a lot of things that I think those people are missing, such as trying to optimize their happiness in the current moment while also freeing themselves and trying to find a balance between having money and time now, instead of trying to just push it to the future because we don't know what the future holds. But yeah, so at the time, what this mindset of trying to make more without having a plan, without knowing how much more do I need, why do I need more, why is it important to get more, what do I actually want to get out of life, is it just to buy a home or buy a bigger home, or what is the purpose of me working harder or earning more? But it was also costing me the opportunity to build stronger relationships with my coworkers and the ability to enjoy the present moment, which is really key. If you're in a situation where you're earning more money than you need to, and you're able to live a lifestyle that makes you really happy, you might not want to get out of bed, every single day you're running to your work, but it's a work that still allows you to live like a lifestyle that you're super happy with, helps you support your family. I think this is the step that I would implement if I was you, if you're in that situation. One is look at your career trajectory. And if it's something that really, for the most part, you're happy with, and it's leading you on a path to financial freedom in a reasonable amount of time, that's the first step. If that's good, then stick with it in a way. Then the second is know how much you need by the time you get to retirement, and where's that money going to come from? Like, is it going to come from your house? Is it going to come from your savings, your investment portfolio, your rental properties? And that's going to also dictate how much you actually need to save while you're in that period of your life. And you really just want to save the minimum per se, right? If you know that your lifestyle in retirement is going to cost X, then you backtrack this to how much you need by retirement, and then you backtrack this to today or how much you need to save to get there. And depending on your saving tools, right, whether it's through the home or your investments, and the rest, spend it and try to maximize your fulfillment today with your family, your friends, while you're healthy. And if I had done that, if I had gone through that exercise, I think I would have had a much happier time throughout Thomson Reuters and Refinitiv and any jobs that I've really had back then, since I've been on the professional the last 10 years, so to speak. And then, yeah, lastly, just chill and take a deep breath and focus on being in the present moment. If I had gone through those steps, I think it would have really increased my level of happiness through that period of my life, instead of having that scarcity that, oh, I need to earn more and more and I need to save more in order to free myself. But again, if step one, if you're in a position where you really despise and that doesn't really make you happy, then of course, the first step is to maybe look, okay, what side gig could you start, or what else could you be doing that would give you more happiness? Or would you want to start a business and then explore that, which we can help you plan, by the way. So first, to recap, the first approach to free yourself from having a scarcity mindset to having an abundant mindset is to have a plan. How much will you need at some point in retirement? How much do you need to save? What are the actions you need to do today? And then once that's figured out, then just focus on your life and what makes you happy, and spend on things that will increase your happiness, or the happiness of the people around you, you're within your community, or whatever purpose you want to achieve, in your personal life. That's the takeaway from this. So having a plan is going to solve for that. But another way that you can solve for having a scarcity mindset, and that sounds cliche, but it's doing what you really want to be doing in life. Let me explain. When Kayla, my fiance, she started her business 6 years ago. And let me tell you, she's been through the roller coasters like crazy. At first, it was really rough. She wasn't making any money. She's racked up a lot of debt. And I could not understand why someone would want to choose a career path like this to start a business in a sector, or she's in a very niche, she's a human design coach. You might be asking, like, what the hell is this, Guillaume? That's right. No one really knows. She's so niche into what she's doing, but she has clients all over the world now, and she's crushing it. I mean, she's had multiple six-figure business, and she's really killing it. But it took her like 6 years to get it off the ground. And I couldn't understand why would someone go through that that pain, but also how come someone could be so chill and relaxed while going through that pain financially? Because I was the one with the high income, the high saving rate, and tried to keep my expense low. And I still had a scarcity mindset with the budget sheet. I was like, oh my God, that's not enough in order to like buy a home, given that where the home prices are. What if we want to have kids? And I was feeling like societal pressure, and I was getting older to basically I felt behind. I felt I didn't save enough. I didn't have enough, right? And she wasn't worried about anything like that. All she was consumed about was her passion and interest and skill set to be applied to her business in order to get her business off the ground. And I could not comprehend that until I became a self-employed and then until I started a business. So to give you an idea, I went from making, six-figure, really good salary up to 2022. And then when I got laid off, then after that, I went with no incomes until I started as a financial planner, as a self-employed, which I started officially on August 1st, 2023. And in 2023, I made about $10,000. And then in 2024, last year, I made $20,000. So to give you an idea, I spent $98,500 for my investment portfolio, for my own savings, to pay for personal expenses and business expenses since January 2023. So just over 25 months, I spent almost $100,000 of my own money to keep the lights on and grow the business. And even today, now I'm starting to be at the break even, depending on how many clients I onboard essentially. But if I keep the pace on, like 2025 should be a great year. But again, it took a huge cost for me to make this happen. And you might be asking, Guillaume, why did you choose that path? Because I could have chosen a way easier path, right? I could have chosen to go work for an established firm. But I really wanted to build something that was in line with what I believe. And it starts with the investment philosophy, which I've already shared in a previous podcast, but choosing index or factor-based funds. 80%, I would say probably more, but 80% of the teams in Canada, the financial planning teams or financial advisor or investment advisor team, they don't use that strategy. They're still trying to pick stocks, whether BMO is going to outperform CIBC out there, which I think is an absolute waste of time, especially when you're servicing and managing retail client portfolios. Lots of teams are focused on that. And then also, I wanted to own a business and grow a business. And that's why, I partnered with Sam. And now we use the trade name Millennial Wealth. I get to choose who I work with. And I get to also manage my time so I can have a lot of time for each client. So I'm rested for each client. My happiness is up, my performance is a lot better for each plan that I do. I try to get better and better than the last plan. So all in all, even though I had to pay this high cost of my own pocket to make this happen and to build this business and create that momentum, at first, I think it's well worth the investment for the value that I'm deriving. And as I'm documenting the growth, on this podcast, the expertise and how well I'm doing and I'm servicing clients is just going to be reflected by how many people will want to work with me or how many clients will want to hire me as their financial planner. I think any business owner who's successful is just a reflection of how great they are at their craft. It might take some time, but that's where, it's important to be patient and be consistent, which comes back to how I started the podcast. The goal is not to be perfect, but it's to be consistent. So to summarize, move from a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset around money. Well, it comes down to doing what you really love, what you're passionate about, what you're interested, what I think I'm really great at. And that's consuming all my time and energy, where I don't focus on the money side of things. What I'm focused on is to make the next best plan and the next best service to the next client the best way possible, and focused on the purpose and the vision and making a difference, within my industry, within my community, but within the clients that I'm serving. And that's taking away all that scarcity mindset of, oh my God, I'm not having enough. So I'm just focused on the actions that I can take to grow the business and make an impact and make a difference. And that's giving me a lot of freedom. And that's really moved me from having a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset around money. I think the biggest takeaway about moving from a scarcity to an abundant mindset is, and to move from that point of never having enough to having more than you need, is also to reshape how you view what having enough means and what wealth means. And I can't recommend this book enough, but it's called The 5 Types of Wealth by Sahil Bloom. This is one of the best books I've read in a very long time. And there's 5 types of wealth: financial wealth, social wealth, physical wealth, and time wealth. And that is one of the best book and best definition of what true wealth is. And the goal is to be wealthy in all those buckets, not just financial wealth, which this is where the scarcity mindset came from. So how you view your situation is way more important than the situation itself. Money is just a tool. It should never be the end goal. It's all about what you're doing to earn it, what you're building, and how much fun you're having along the journey, and how fulfilled you are along your journey. That's the journey is what matters most. So whatever it's your current job or it's the business you're building, the most important is maximizing what you're doing within your journey, not necessarily postponing everything to later on. But also you need to be planning along your journey, because it's only through the planning that you'll be able to maximize, the earnings, the savings, the investing part, and everything that is associated with finances, especially as a business owner. And to come back to the FIRE comments that I made earlier, I think there's a lot of great things to take on from the FIRE movements, which is basically living below your means, spending less than you earn, and all that stuff, which is great. But where I disagree is I don't want you to wait 20 years to get freedom. I want to help you implement a lifestyle and a work-life balance today that is allowing you to have money and freedom, or as much freedom as you can, relatively speaking. I mean, if you want to build a great business, you're still going to have to put the hours and work a decent amount, but you still need to take some time and carve out sometimes to go on that trip with your family, to be present for the holidays and the things that are important for you in all the buckets of wealth that I've covered that are beyond financial. So my goal is to help clients, and I implement that for myself as well, to help them maximize each bucket today and not wait 20 years to do that. So that concludes this episode. And if you want, you can connect with me on Instagram. So I'm Guillaume Girard 20, that's personal, and Financial Planner Guy, that's professional, and also on LinkedIn. So get in touch with me. If you want to leave a comment below, yeah, please do. Of course, it helps with the algorithm. But if not, just send me a DM personally. Let me know about what you're working on. Let me know about any fitness goals or any other goals that you may have. Could be going for walks every day or achieving certain steps every day. Doesn't have to be doing, Ironmans and whatnot. Like, it doesn't have to be crazy. But anything that you're chasing or you're working towards, please let me know. And of course, if you're interested in the services that we provide to clients, you can visit our website at mwadvisors.ca. You can also subscribe to our newsletters, and all the links will be in the show notes. So thank you again for listening, and see you in the next episode.